As each day goes by, there's a new player in the Middle East that we have to talk about, whether it's Iran more involved, whether it's Hezbollah more involved, whether it's the Lebanese government more involved, and the fact that South Beirut, basically south of Beirut, down to the southern border with Israel, is controlled by Hezbollah, both politically and militarily. So people are trying to learn about Hezbollah at the same time they're learning about Hamas. And Israel had to take airstrikes out on the runways in Damascus. The major airports in Syria have been taken out by Israel. We know that's also a base for Hezbollah operatives and Iranian operatives. So Israel is surrounded by these Iranian proxies to the west, to the north, and to the east. And then to the south, the question is always, what will Egypt do?
Well, there's 360,000 troops in Israel that have been activated. Most of them are on the southern border. There are groups, and there's always a permanent presence in the north. So we don't know the number of that, and the Israelis are not announcing that. You know, every night on the air, the Israeli spokesperson is being asked, when are you going in? Well, they're not going to tell you when they're going in. We've had a huge intelligence failure here. I mean, it's been a huge intelligence failure, probably the biggest intelligence failure in Israel's history. So in one sense, Jordan, you're operating in a very new paradigm. This is not the way Israel generally operates.
No, usually they've got the intelligence, so they're not caught off guard. They're catching someone off guard. They've seen terror attacks happen and occur in Israel. We've seen the suicide bombers get through, the bus stations, the knife attacks, but not a scale this large.
No.
Why is the Israeli invasion not yet begun? There's questions about that. Is the U.S. pressuring Israel directly not to send in troops deep inside Gaza because of hostage negotiations that are still ongoing? We did see over the end of Friday and over the weekend 2 hostages that were released, but many said, hey, don't make this change your mind. Don't think differently about who Hamas really is. Though they might have released those 2 hostages, remember, they've still got 200 more hostages, including children and the elderly, that they are willing to trade with or put in harm's way or kill if Israel invades.
And there's now reports that Israel's saying that there is upwards of 230 hostages.
Yes, that number keeps growing.
With Hamas and with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So the number is growing. They're still finding bodies. There's also still concerns that there's actually cell groups, terrorist cell groups from Hamas still inside the borders of Israel. So look, I mean, this is very complicated, and we've handled hostage negotiations before, so we can give you a perspective. If you're in the position that we were in, which was as a negotiator trying to get someone out, you remember this with Nadarkhani, you remember with Saeed Abedini, you remember with Brunson, you want time. So you don't want the governments engaging in a military operation that would interrupt or and somehow change the negotiating factors that you're dealing with when you're trying to get someone out.
Though with the Ayad family, that military engagement was actually the push that finally got them out.
Yes,
interesting enough.
So, I mean, we should cover that. Let's talk about that one for a moment.
So that was directly involving Palestinians who were in the Gaza Strip, and he oversaw the Palestinian Bible Society in Gaza, and he was killed by Hamas, and his family wanted to link up with their family in the West Bank, which would require an okay from Israel to leave the Gaza Strip, travel across Israel, and then enter the West Bank, which is, again, it involves both Hamas opening up gates and Israel opening up gates. And we were negotiating all this. They actually said, hey, time for you guys to get over here. We think this is about to happen. While we were landing, a war broke out between Hamas and Israel. I mean, literally, Operation Cast Lead was beginning, and this is why we needed to get her across the border crossing. But we were able to get that done just as the war was breaking out. Now, that was a much smaller scale war, Dan. That was those kind of indiscriminate rocket attacks we saw going into Israel, those small rockets that we saw. Basically, Hamas has been left with. It's been interesting. Hamas is back to, because they have decimated so much of their supplies, what they have left that they're shooting into Israel is more similar to what we saw in Cast Lead, which is rockets that they make inside the Gaza Strip that don't have great tracking devices, aren't as strong, aren't as killer in a good sense. But Hezbollah to the north, they've got the sophisticated weaponry and an even more trained military. So we were able to see the family cross through Israel and get into the West Bank while there was war in the Gaza Strip. And we were able to then get inside the West Bank while there was that war inside the Gaza Strip, which I think underscores the importance of that failed meeting last week when Joe Biden couldn't meet with Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas. That was unfortunate because we know that in the West Bank, even though they're anti-Israel to an extent, it's a different level of hatred.
I think that what really needs to happen is the American government, Biden administration, needs to concentrate on our hostages, get our hostages home. That doesn't necessarily mean that we tell Israel to not do its strategy. It means that we go in diplomatically and get our hostages back. What is so frustrating is why did we have Blinken and Joe Biden in the region and world leaders were canceling meetings on them? I don't understand why they just can't go in and say, we want our hostages back. Go to Egypt, go to Qatar, go to these places and say, get the American hostages out right now. That's our priority.
So part of the strategy maybe here is that they're trying to buy time to do hostage negotiations. But Jordan and I did a hostage negotiation with utilizing help within the Israeli government during a war, during Operation Cast Lead. So they're like, I'm with you. These are not mutually exclusive.
Look, Jay, you know that the way we negotiated for Pastor Brunson was Donald Trump to Erdogan. That's how you do it. You get this at a very high level. Joe Biden went all the way over to the region, and the world leaders wouldn't meet with him. How about that? They literally wouldn't have a meeting with him. How are we supposed to get the American hostages back when Joe Biden can't get a meeting with the different players? I still believe that if Joe Biden picked up the phone and negotiated with the leaders of Qatar, Egypt, and Jordan, and made this a priority and said, you will face consequences if we don't get our Americans back, they could go in and do this. Remember, Hamas is a terrorist organization, but it's also the government of Gaza.
Look, it's going to, at any moment, this engagement's going to change drastically in a very significant way. Is it tonight? Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? That I can't predict. But I could tell you the escalation here is going to be real. We've got 1,521. Let's end the day with 1,551. That would be great, of new ACLJ champions. I want to encourage you right now. You know the devastation that's been inflicted on Israel. You know what they're going to be faced with. But we're fighting for Israel with letters and documents and briefs to the international tribunals. While we work tirelessly to defend life and liberty, you can join with us. Become a monthly donor, aclj.org/champions.